From Icebow players being absolute tryhards to logbait mains annoying the heck out of everybody, here's what your deck says about you in Clash Royale. 2.6 Hogs Cycle. After playing this deck for years, you've mastered this deck so well that you can literally play it in your sleep. You believe that defending any push with 2.6 takes skill, but the reality is, you are mistaken. You spam hogs and musketeers so fast that your opponents are convinced that you have unlimited elixir. You absolutely hate graveyard players. You fail 90% of the fireball predictions you make and only win because your hog riders always get that one extra last hit on the tower. Log bait. People consider you a tryhard. You're convinced that every deck is a bad matchup for log bait, but you despise Royal Recruits decks the most. Your actual win condition isn't the Goblin barrel, it's the Princess and Rocket. Your Goblin barrels never get damage, so at the end, you just spam princesses at the bridge and rocket cycle in triple elixir. You feel like the smartest player ever when your opponent falls for your tricky barrel. You pull off some great defenses though. Spamming emotes is your favorite hobby due to which people consider you seriously annoying. Pekka bridge spam. You love chaos, but with a plan. Your goal is simple, spam troops at the bridge until your opponent forgets how to defend. Patience isn't your strong suit, but who needs it when you've got Pekka shredding tanks and bandits dashing everywhere? You come off as respectable if you're using a battle ram in your deck, but if you are playing the Pekka Ram Rider version, you are just evil and like to abuse broken cards. Your Ram Riders and bandits always connect to the tower at the least amount of HP. You often overcommit though and end up with 0 elixir, which in turn loses you the game. Icebow cycle. You're an even bigger tryhard than logbait players. You consider your deck to be extremely high skill when all you do is just spell cycle and defend. You consider it a win if your Icebow locks on the tower for even a split second because your bit of chip damage counts for you. You need to stop using all your elixir to protect a near-dead Icebow and save it to set up another one. For some reason you BM a lot when you know you're gonna lose, but BM even harder when you win against a royal giant. Minor wall breakers. You're either great at this deck or completely trash. There's no between. One of your wall breakers always sneaks in through all your opponent's defenses to deliver that winning blow. You make some great offensive plays, but you sometimes mess up your defense. Lava Hound players are your nightmare, but if you're a top player, even they don't stand a chance. Royal Hogs Earthquake. You take full advantage of the 3-card cycle with champions. Your deck takes skill, but more on defense than on offense. The pigs always get some chip damage for you while your Royal Delivery absolutely cooks on defense. Your matches are generally really close, but you mostly end up winning the spell cycle race because of how fast you can cycle earthquakes on the enemy's towers. Mega Knight Bait. All you do is spam. Every player hates you and you enjoy that fact. Your deck takes absolutely no skill to stop convincing yourselves that it does. Your opponent eventually crumbles under all the spam, and you end up using 1,000 emotes on them. Thousands of mid-ladder players quit the game because of you. Hog Rider Earthquake. You first saw Ian77 play this deck and ever since fell in love with it. You are quite a skillful player and your Hog Riders always go one step extra to get that final shot, and the evolved Firecracker is just cherry on top. But you also miss your Earthquake a lot on buildings, mainly because you try to act smart and predict them. You probably remain confused between which mini-tank and defensive building to use. Bridge spam. Do you ever play cards in the back? You know, just to be a bit passive? I highly doubt that. Just because it's in the name doesn't mean you have to spam every single card on the bridge. You probably spend your entire elixir on the bridge as soon as you see your opponent drop a tank in the back, and then you proceed to get 3 crowned. You also lose close matches because a lot of times your deck won't have a big spell. Lumberloon Freeze. You always have a tough time on defense, but you mostly always end up taking the opponent's tower in 1 or 2 Lumberloon pushes. Electro Dragon is the real MVP of your deck, and you probably have pulled some miraculous defenses with the Electro Dragon and Tornado combo. You dislike facing logbait players. Mortar Miner. Your patience should be studied to the core because how do you even manage to remain so patient while playing this deck? Your mortars don't usually hit and miners are extremely slow in taking out the towers by themselves. But the hidden gem in your deck is the cannon card, which will always connect in the absolute final moments of the match to give you the victory. Mega Knight Ram Rider. You just like to abuse broken cards. Ever since the evolved Mega Knight came out, you've been gaining new personal bests every now and then. You tend to overcommit a lot of Elixir on offense just so that your Ram Rider can get a charge on the tower. You beat most decks nowadays, but you're cooked the moment you face the evolved Pekka, Goblin Drill Bomber. You should rename this deck as Bomber Cycle because he is your actual win condition. While you may get some damage through your drills from time to time, it's the evolved Bomber which wins you matches. Somehow, your opponents always choke against the evolved Bomber. You are quite a skilled player if you use your tornadoes effectively on offense. Royal Giant Fisherman. You're a really skillful player because stacking 2 Royal Giants in different lanes is surely a difficult task. No, I'm not being sarcastic. Or am I? You make some great plays using the Fisherman and Hunter combo, but as soon as you face a Pekka or an Inferno Tower, all your skill just vanishes. Icebow. You worship Hunter like he's the best player in the entire world and no one can beat him. Don't be so delusional. After 4 minutes of constant effort to try to get an Icebow lock, you resort to the easy way of winning. Rocket Cycle. You argue that Icebow was, is, and will remain the best version of Icebow. You're also probably a one-trick and are unable to play any other decks. Royal Recruits Ram Rider. You counter almost every deck in the meta because you use too many broken and annoying cards. As if using Evolved Recruits and Ram Rider wasn't enough, you thought it would be a cool idea to sneak in the Goblin Stein. Your deck doesn't even need you to play well in order to win. Just drop Recruits, split Goblin Stein, and the Ram Rider will do the rest. And if all this is still not enough, that annoying flying machine will definitely do the job for you. Lava Loon. You main Lava Loon both in Clash Royale and Clash of Clans. You find it hard to maintain a good win streak because you either fully counter your opponent's deck or you yourself get hard countered. Your real test doesn't begin when you face an Electro Giant or something. It begins when you face a similar Lava Hound player as yourself and have the worst starting hand of all time, Splashyard. You always win games because of some lucky skeleton hits on the tower. Your entire game plan depends on just defending the whole game and praying that your graveyard gets a good RNG. Logbait players are your arch nemesis, and your battles are always legendary. But is Splashyard more lucky than skill? Discuss in the comments. Golem Beatdown. You're probably way past your prime, and the only reason you use Golem now is either because that's the only deck you have maxed, or you just really have good memories while playing it. Other beatdown decks just don't excite you. Even though many players will constantly make fun of you by calling you no skill, you know it well that every time you search up for a match, there's a 90% chance you're gonna run into a hard counter. Goblin Giant Sparky. You are the ultimate 3-crown machine. You are the perfect definition of play bad and still win, because you can play horribly throughout the match, and yet one push is all it takes to 3-crown your opponent. The only skill required with your deck is to drop your prediction rage on swarms sometimes, but other than that, 100% toxicity, 0% skill. You are quite toxic since you BM opponents frequently. Karma does hit you back when you face a logbait player. 3 Musketeers Elixir Collector. You're still stuck in 2017 and need to get out ASAP. You are most definitely a new or a mid-ladder player because there's no way you're playing this deck on top ladder. And if somehow you're managing to win constantly with this, then hats off to you because you're the most skilled player ever. Minor Balloon. You are the actual definition of a high-skill player. Despite how hard the matchup is, you always find one way or the other to sneak a balloon in. There's a reason why this deck is only seen on top ladder. If you're using this, you are probably a good player. Or you're just someone who copied this deck from TV Royale and likes to pretend they are cool. Elixir Golem. Touch grass for heaven's sake. The way you ignore your opponent's pushes is how others ignore you. You and you alone are responsible for deleting the entire concept of strategy from our beloved game. No one likes an Elixir Golem player. Despite knowing all this, you don't care a bit and continue to ruin your opponent's day by 3-crowning and BMing them. Electro Giant Lightning. How do you not get bored after repeating the same thing again and again? All your pushes are the exact same. So if you don't manage to break your opponent's defense in the first push, don't expect to do so in the remainder of the game too. Against decks with good defensive buildings, you probably get more damage on towers from lightning than the Electro Giant himself. You wish to live in a world without Pekka and Fisherman. Despite your playstyle being toxic, respect to you for keeping the Lava Hound players in check. Giant Beatdown. You're probably just starting your Clash Royale journey and Giant is the only win condition you have. You probably face similar decks like yours every day. You may be using a top ladder variation of Giant Prince, which gives you plus 1000 aura points because your deck finished number 1 last season. Giant Graveyard. You call out so many decks as hard counters but somehow manage to beat every one of them. Maybe because your deck requires only a single brain cell to play? Funnily enough, your graveyard tanks more for your giant than your giant does for the graveyard. Elite Barbarians Rage. You need to learn that bullying is not right. The only reason you win is because of your super high card levels, especially your star level 2 maxed Elite Barbarians. Otherwise, you're just an average player who will always be stuck in mid-ladder. And stop BMing. You're only making a fool of yourselves while BMing with overleveled Elite Barbarians. Pump Bow. You are currently destroying everyone in the meta considering how strong your deck is right now. Though you do spam Elixir collectors like your life is dependent on it. You watch a lot of Aragon's videos, and that's a good thing because he's a cool guy. Original deck. Congratulations if you're actually playing an original deck and not one of the previous decks I mentioned. While your deck may not be the absolute best, it's because of you that the game remains fresh. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you feel comfortable with your deck, nothing should stop you from playing it. Play Clash Royale in whatever way you find it fun. Do you know how many Clash Royale deck combinations exist? There are, wait, I can't even read that number. Well, that many decks, so many cards, and so many stereotypes. If you want to uncover stereotypes about every card in Clash Royale, click on this video.